so whenever you're ready, I'm just going to press on.
Okay. Okay,
So are you going to
perfect.
start now?
Yeah, I guess we will. I'm just going to signal them to tell them we're going to go. Just give me one sec. We'll go? Yeah, good to go. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're gonna get underway. Keep ourselves on time. So if you could take your seats, we'll get moving on this. So welcome once again. Today, thank you for coming to the launch of our accessible media player. The player's been a long time in coming. We've been working on it for about a year and a half, with the goal of getting it to today and launching it here today. And it's going to be going live to the public website sometime in October. And we'll take it from there. And we're going to tell you a bit about more details about how we created it and what its purpose will be. So just a bit of an overview. A lot of you in this room already know this information, but our mandate is to make media accessible for all Canadians. We're not-for-profit. We have 3 broadcast channels. As you heard earlier, we're launching our 3rd channel on December 16th, AMI Tele, based in Montreal. And we're mandated as must-carry services. So if you have a digital TV subscription in Canada, you get all 3 of our channels automatically for free, included within your cable package. And we've been doing this for about 20 years. We've been around with these 3 different services over those years. AMI Audio started back 20 years ago, providing news and information. We're modifying the format now to be a bit different, to provide magazine articles and professionally read content, but also original programs. AMI TV, unique in that it's open described. So the description is automatically on when you come to the channel. Somewhat disconcerting for those who are uninitiated to it, but it's open described in closed caption TV. And AMI Tele, there should have been a TV removed there. AMI Tele will be the duplicate in French. You can find us at ami.ca. We also have the DV Guide that you can go to, which is the Described Video TV Guide that categorizes all the channels across Canada and the description that they have on their channels. And it's a number that's continuing to grow over the years. We also do a few other things. You can find more information about them at our site, Scholarship, Research Panel, DV Best Practices. Now, the reason why you're here today. So what we've done is we've named it the AMI's A Player, modeled it after the name of the BBC iPlayer. So following along, but stressing that accessible content piece to it. It's going to be launching on ami.ca in October to provide an accessible broadcast experience. So what does that mean? It means that it's specifically designed to be used for broadcasting. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be providing our original programming through this player on our site to begin with, and you'll be able to gain access to our content there. The player, as you will hear, has been built to be structurally compliant, but also then to provide accessible content. And I'll let my colleague Chris O'Brien and Elle Waters from Simply Accessible go into that in more detail.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Robert said, my name is Chris O'Brien, and I'm the SharePoint Program Manager for AMI. I just wanted to start off by talking to you about the engine that powers the video player. As you know, we've partnered with Simply Accessible to create the player, but we also partnered with an organization known as The Platform, and we are actually leveraging their player development kit in order to make this all happen. So I'm just going to go over a few slides of some of the services that they offer. So for those who don't know, they are an online video publishing and management solution which offers a suite of products and services which enable video management and publishing across multiple devices. This includes things such as workflow, ingesting. They have controls which have entitlements, content protection, commerce, and they offer also syndication options. They have numerous playback options across multiple devices, different screen playbacks and whatnot. As you can see here, this screen's a bit tricky to see, but basically what you see is the different tiers of services that they offer. On the left-hand side, it covers their ingesting process, which is the means by which you put content into the platform, really. The middle tier is the management tier, and it includes things such as the managing, the editing, transcoding, and all that kind of stuff, workflows. And then lastly, there's the distribution tier, which you can have your security layers and also various commerce functionality. Basically, these guys, if anything that you need to do with any kind of media, they are able to accommodate you. The player that we built was built on an open API, which was built for standards-based implementations. It offers a JS API layer for developers to write code once, even if the video layer itself renders down to HTML5 or Flash. The JavaScript layer with HTML5 allows for easy screen reader and keyboard control support. They also offer multiple languages through their media object, including captions, transcripts, all within a single media. They also support multiple audio tracks if it's available in their underlying video streams. And they also offer, varying levels of metrics to measure everything you're doing to make sure you're on track. For our particular implementation, we leverage the service called the Universal Player, which once again is an API which allows you to interact with their PDK, which automatically decides whether to render the video in Flash or HTML based on the features of the device consuming it. So obviously that simplifies development greatly and really gives you a peace of mind. Another thing that they offer, which we're not currently taking advantage of, is something known as one file, one URL. And this simplifies the video publishing and playback process significantly. Players no longer need to worry about file formats or bit rates for their devices. So you can just pass a single URL into the player and it'll take care of the file formats and the adaptive bit rates for you. Obviously, accessibility is important for all of us. That's why we're all here. And the PDK allowed us to leverage many things such as closed captioning, screen reader availability, keyboard controls. They offer captioning in multiple protocols such as SMTPE, SAMI, DFX, SRT, to name a few. And they also offer embedded live stream video over MPEG-4. Player captioning also allows for customization such as size and positioning in fonts. And also transcripts can be downloaded directly with the media as you consume it. I was going to go through a quick slide about our player overview, but I think in the issue of time, we're just going to go and start the demo, I think. Also, I just wanted to point out that we have a representative from the platform here, Andrew Bray. Andrew, do you want to just raise your hand for a sec? If anyone has any questions about the platform service or you're interested, he's the man to talk to, so please don't hesitate. Okay, let's just bring this up. There we go. It's a little drawn out. I don't know if we want to dim the lights or... Sure.
Actually, it looks like it's hooked up to a bunch of stuff. Does this one work? So, hi everybody. My name's Elle Waters. I work for Simply Accessible, and just a little bit of back history about this. We have built media players before, and each time as an accessibility agency, we learn things and we continue to try and improve the experience. But it is something similar to other things like dashboards or large-scale PDF remediation. There are these things that represent kind of like the holy grail of really complex, difficult problems to solve in accessibility. And something as sophisticated as what the platform offers and what AMI wanted was one of those kinds of things. It was and is a huge privilege to be able to work with these guys. It's not always the case when you're working with a client and you don't have to have the talk about why something needs to be accessible. You don't have to make the case for their users. right? And so that was a delight, to be honest. That was a wonderful piece of this project. The other thing that I wanted to mention is because we were so excited about this project and getting the opportunity to work on it because of how many different people use the platform services. You know, you guys are leaders in the space, and so this is not just, you know, a player. This also has opportunities that I think are really far-reaching, even beyond. And having these guys spearhead that was an amazing opportunity. So I wanted to say that was just one of the highlights. The other thing was that we were throwing AMI into this idea, like what we would like to do is something different. A lot of times people will build something and then they will deliver it to the client. But we wanted this to meet their expectations, which was not compliant, but fully and completely accessible. And so that there really was no, well, you know, we want it to just reach this level of accessibility. The idea was everything was on the table, and we were going to go as far as we could, which is way further than compliance, until we ran out of time or budget. And so in doing that, that meant we could not do that at a cost-effective way unless we put it into a lean process. So one of the advantages of anybody who's familiar with lean and agile is that you do have this ability to iterate on things. You have the ability to build something, test it, find it fails, fix it, keep building. But a lot of times people in accessibility are afraid of the agile process or of lean because of the idea of something failing. That's actually a pretty significant thing, right? You're dealing with someone's ability to access content. So that becomes a huge challenge. But if you go into it with the understanding that you're creating a minimum viable product and that those things are not all going to be solved, not every accessibility problem was going to be solved with the first iteration. And everyone knows, acknowledging this is not done, this is done for this particular sprint, then you have that opportunity to really get into a really rapid turnaround. And again, working with a platform, it was a really an incredibly close, tight, circular loop that we were able to communicate. And then additionally, we were able to build in usability testing with people with disabilities of several different types of users every single sprint. And so that was a unique opportunity, and I think that's part of the reason why this was such a huge success. These are my notes, right? These are my slides. It's an unconference. So one of the things that makes this truly more accessible than anything that we've done before, everybody looks at media accessibility, and the first thing they're thinking about is keyboard accessibility and focus path management. Those are some of the bigger issues when you're looking at a lot of video player experiences, is that things aren't exposed properly, they're not fully accessible via keyboard. So that was kind of the ground zero level. And captions and transcripts, that's the other thing that people think about with accessible media. And to us, that was first, you know, do the normal things, right? So within that first sprint, some of those things were the very first things that we attacked because we knew that that was out of the gate the first thing we would do. But things that make this one different is really because I think that we focus, because of AMI's audience, there's a lot of low vision users within their audience, and so low vision needs often get overlooked with things like media, and especially when you're talking about resizing, because the other requirement was that this needed to be fully responsive. And so our normal testing protocol involves several different types of browsers, several different types of screen readers, voice recognition software, zoom magnification, and different versions of those things. So we have a pretty robust testing suite already of what we do. But being able to make this hit the highest marks and also make it responsive was a really great challenge. So all of the controls are semantically structured, fully keyboard accessible HTML controls. Obviously, you need something like that if you're going to be thinking about responsive. The controls are built with RIM as a unit of measurement. And the thing that this makes it unique is because of the fact that it's relative, the size changes based on the user's font size settings. Because, why you ask? Because, this is my favorite part, the controls are built with SVG. And so that's something that also provides low vision users clarity at any kind of resolution, and it allows it to scale, and you're not getting fuzzy, weird images, right? And then also, that's why we're able to then make it something that sizes according to what the user has already decided his or her font settings are.
I can't actually see the toolbar, so it's not there.
Yeah. So we have this available publicly. We're going to send a, are you able to show, maybe? This is really it's an unusual thing to demo because there's not like a ooh, ah kind of thing with it because, yeah. There we go. So just like, drag it in there. Yeah, there you go. It really is like SVG and accessibility are like, to me, one of the more fun things to, because this part is kind of the ooh, ah factor, right? You just make it small, make it big. So anyway, we have this publicly available because one of the things that I would really encourage you guys to do is to teach us if there's anything that still needs to be done. We did rigorous testing and peer review. We did usability testing. And we're actually currently doing another round of usability testing for a new feature for it. But if there's something that we've missed, and you know, we're not too proud to say it's possible, but if there's something we've missed, let us know. As an example, you'll see that there's fast forward and rewind. So previously when we built media players, we had the scrubber, and we made sure the scrubber was fully keyboard accessible and that it announced properly to screen reader users, knowing exactly the time that it was on, you know, like where it was and the time stamp and all of that. To us, we felt that that was what needed to happen with accessibility. We brought this into usability testing, and a lot of screen reader users came back and said, I really don't know what to do with this scrubber thing that you have, and I would like to be able to fast forward or rewind with a button. And we were like, a button? Why would you, like what would that do? Because it's not like it's a tape player, right? And it's digital, and it's not really the design pattern that you usually see these days, is having buttons to fast forward and rewind. But then on further investigation and discussion, there's two reasons. One is that the scrubber, a couple of users told us that this, I mean, I'm going to translate it to user experience terms, this mental model did not make sense to a non-sighted user because when we're looking at the scrubber, we have the entire landscape in front of us visually. And instead, it just didn't translate to non-sighted users. Additionally, there's something called Accessible YouTube, and their players have a fast forward and a rewind button. So while it was compliant and even accessible to our standards of what we understood, finding those other areas to make it a fully delightful, accessible experience is really what we were aiming for. So, and the last thing I'll say, and I'll pass it off to you, Robert, yeah? The last thing I'll say is we're not done, which is great. So the project's done, but it's not done because we're doing some more stuff. The neat thing was because the sky's the limit, we have this wish list. It is called Elle's wish list because I was coming up with like, I would love if we could do the following. And so we're going to be doing more iterations on this and more things. Some of the examples of what we'd like, and again, we're going to test it and see. Maybe users don't want this, but this is like sort of our list of things that we're going to explore. Alternate themes, like different color schemes and high contrast mode themes. Customizable captions, I think that that's been pretty well demonstrated that that's something that users would want. And dockable controls, which is something that we've been working on a mobile app with another client. The idea is that within a video, especially a video that has captions, you may actually have a need to move the controls aside so that you can see maybe what's happening on the screen and not have those controls hide that. Or it may be easier for users if, for example, they only have use of one hand versus another hand. It may be easier, especially in a mobile device, since this is fully responsive, that they're able to put it on the side of the screen with the one thumb thing that a lot of people do that makes the most sense for them. And so I'm really excited about that one. 3Play Media has a great synced transcript capability. We want to build that in as well. And we are going to be putting, this is a feedback from usability testing, we're going to put a tooltip on the slider so that people understand. I thought it was actually already on there, maybe, okay. So we're going to be putting that on there as well, a tooltip on the slider that provides that information about where someone is, because if you're a low vision user and you have this all the way built out and you're going down there to adjust the slider, you won't necessarily see the beginning and the end numbers on the screen, right, because you're zoomed in. So this allows at the place where you need it to know exactly what you're doing. And last but not least, auto-detecting, similar to the way that we, because RIM is able to adjust according to what the user's font settings are, finding some other ways to be able to utilize if a user's already customized something about his or her browser we want to be able to be more responsive to that. So very exciting, very cool stuff, very geeky. I'll be sending out, or maybe Robert, you guys will be sending out a link because, and I'll give you my email address. Let us know if there's anything that you see that could be improved on it, because we're not done yet. So I'm going to pass it off to you.
Well, why don't we just fire it up and see
Yeah.
see what it does?
Yeah. And we want to turn on the captions as well.
Oh, we have no sound.
We have.
It's not plugged in.
No, it's not plugged in. Anyway,
No, that's
there
okay.
is actually
It's okay.
sound.
Yeah.
So another thing that was a challenge as well was single screen mode for class. And
The softest one.
It's very creamy.
And then the next one is here just on the bottom. A couple of weeks. And the last cheese is probably ripened for a few years. You can tell just texturally, they're all very different.
Yeah.
Same milk, very different end result.
So really, it's all about texture.
Food. Touch it.
So that's full screen.
Smell it. Hear it.
And then can we show the
Taste
screen?
it.
Captioning first.
Close
Oh, yeah,
your
yeah.
eyes and experience food.
Here's a
We're
download of the
cooking
transcript.
four senses.
Drop in another tab.
Hi there, I'm Carl Heinrich.
And I'm Christine Haw.
And today we're talking all about texture
Texture.
with Chef John Horn.
There we
Pleasure
go.
to be here, guys.
Welcome.
So that's
Love
the
textures.
the
We love
transcript.
textures. Well, your recipe today is all about textures.
Yes, we're going to use chocolate today, and it implies textures all through it.
Tell me a little about your recipe. It's a chocolate.
We're going to be doing a chocolate mousse.
Yes.
So very silky,
The
smooth.
seek function that we
And then we're gonna
discussed
be-
earlier as well.
33
Whipping cream.
whipping cream, same
Some milk.
stages.
So a little bit.
This is our
Some
new
more
cooking
full,
show
some
that we have
half full.
recently
The fullest one's
launched.
for Christine.
So we're just going to put it in the fridge. It will take about an hour to set from there. Christine, you can help me make the nougatine.
Can you explain what that is exactly? I know what nougat is, but I've never heard of nougatine.
Nougatine is more of a chocolate crunchy crackling candy. In front of you, I have
You can
milk,
see how it's nicely
glucose,
resized.
and butter. Glucose
Pardon
is
me.
a liquid sugar.
Liquid sugar.
Yeah,
And then this is butter.
about a third of a pound of butter in there.
Okay.
And then we're just gonna put it on the burner
Okay.
and melt this all together.
And then you want this on what heat?
About a
level?
medium heat.
So that is the player in a nutshell. That show that you were watching is called Four Senses. It's a show that we recently launched on our network. You may have noticed one of the hosts of that show is Christine Ha. She won MasterChef down in the U.S. She is blind, and she's one of our hosts for that show, as well as Carl Heinrich, who was a Top Chef Canada winner. So they host the show together. And we just wrapped actually filming season 2 that's going to launch in the new year. So as Elle said, we will send out the link to that, so please feel free to take a look. We'll feed it.
Live demos are like the kiss of death when it comes to screen readers. And after watching that lunchtime thing, I was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So I think it's challenging to do, but we can fire it up afterwards maybe and take a look at it. It's just we didn't have anything set up to be able to demo it with a screen reader. And also, truthfully, I think the bigger gains, I think there are relatively straightforward ways to be able to make a media player accessible to a screen reader user, but I think the thing that I was most passionate about is for low vision users often not getting the same amount of attention for that. And so that was really part of it as well, to be honest, as to why we didn't want to demo just with a screen reader, because oftentimes people think of, and I'm not saying you're saying that at all, but that accessibility equals screen reader, so that was part of the challenge for that. But we can do it afterwards for sure.
So these, just a bit of our contact information, and that is pretty much all. So we can definitely take any questions that you might have. Yeah, I'll start right here. Yes, it does.
There was a conversion process that happened. It went from I believe it's a CC file to uh,
An SEC.
an SEC file into an SRT file.
Yes. That's right.
Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to go back and rejig all of our files. So that's something we're going to look at doing in the future. But certainly there's some work to be done there, I would say.
Yeah. One.
I didn't catch
There's
most
a
of what
bit
you
of a
said,
noise.
actually. Let me
Yeah.
bring the mic to you anyway, so that everybody can hear. I think we want you to have the mic anyway, so caption it.
Hi, sorry. So my first question was regarding live video. Will it support live video? And the other one was about speech recognition programs. You mentioned it works with some of them. So does it work across different, like desktop, mobile devices?
I will let these guys speak about the live video just because it wasn't the focus of the project, and I think that there's a lot that these guys can say. We tested it thoroughly with Dragon Naturally Speaking across different platforms. There isn't, the Dragon on mobile, to be honest, just kind of sucks, right? So it's not something that, when we're asking users what they're doing, what they're using, they're not really relying a lot, from what we've been able to tell from our usability testing, on using Dragon with a mobile experience. Well, Dragon works on Android as well. I mean, and so you're saying that different voice recognition programs. So Siri is, there's two things when it comes to voice recognition. There's the ability to take information and do like search capabilities like Siri, and then there's command level stuff, right? So people who rely on voice recognition software for actually navigating the web and that kind of stuff, they are really looking at something that can open windows and operate controls, in other words. And to my knowledge, I mean, if there's another one out there that people have really rapidly adopted, I'm all ears, and we'll add it to our test, and we'll put it in the usability test that we're doing right now. But I don't think that there really is one. It's pretty much, unlike JAWS and VoiceOver and NVDA, it's really, if you use voice recognition, you're using Dragon more often than not. So, but I'll let them answer about the live video.
So regarding the live video, our player doesn't currently support live video, but I believe, Andrew, you guys do live video. Yeah, absolutely. So if that was something we wanted to scope out in the future, we certainly have the opportunity to do that.
We do also currently broadcast live content and live describe it over the station. So there's definitely potential for that. One example is the Toronto Blue Jays game. We do live description of them over the channels. We'll go to Patrick. Indeed. Yes. Well received from what we heard. If you were privy to the CRTC Let's Talk hearings that were going on in Ottawa over the last couple of weeks, it was titled A Conversation with Canadians about television and what you see as the future of where TV is going. The chairman of the CRTC asked us about the player during the presentation, and we made the declaration that we would, once the player is complete, be giving it to all of our fellow broadcasters for their usage.
There's a small caveat, and I know Patrick's already raised his hand maybe for that, in that AMI has audio description baked into the audio of their videos. So it's not exactly a seamless one-to-one transition, but they all use the platform services as well, many, if not all, maybe. And so there's huge gains, and I'm overly optimistic, there's my caveat, but there's very little work, I think, to be able to take all the work that these guys have done and be able to use it.
And that is exactly right. It's the description toggle that we did not have to do because we had the open description. Go, Dave. For the time being, we're just using it internally. It'll launch on AMI.ca. It will specifically only carry AMI original programming. We have developed maybe 6 or 8 series over the last couple of years. We have a couple of years worth of videos for each. So it'll carry that information for the time being. Any other questions? Yeah, Patrick. pass that to you.
No, they just, what was the package that you guys just rolled out, Andrew?
It's comfortable.
ComScore, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see that as being a challenge because it's all happening, you know, on the platform's part. There's opportunity of things that you could look at and see if there's an abandonment rate for specific reasons or whatever. You could map that against, you know, user feedback as well, and maybe be able to get really robust, rich data about how to improve the experience, especially given that these guys have a very specific demographic. So.
And I believe it's plugin based, right, Andrew? Yeah, so it's just a matter of like, I want this one, and you slide it in.
Monica?
No, it cannot because it's actually built off the PDK, which belongs to the platform. Yeah, so it's actually using their technology.
So, I have to say, right, because I'm simply accessible, I have to say.
Yeah.
With that said, there's a lot of best practices and that kind of stuff that are available once, you know, it's like if it's available to other people, the front end layer of that has basically the learnings from a lot of our usability testing and all of that kind of testing. The services, though, were really very customized in that sense for the platform.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Okay, so no, actually, because using the universal player, the only thing that changes when it drops back to a Flash version is the actual video pane. The controls remain all the same. So it's just the video itself. Yes, the control deck is all.
Yeah, they're all HTML.
It's all HTML5. Yeah, so it's it's a consistent experience from that perspective, which is pretty unique, I think.
Any other questions? No? Well, we'll be around for the rest of the afternoon. Some folks out at the table, feel free to stop us anytime. And thank you for coming today.
Thanks, guys.
We lost the projector, or that was on purpose. Oh, I was looking on my machine. Yeah. Well, it's similar on the MacBook, but it'll be on the trackpad. Yeah. 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 right, good afternoon and welcome. Hi everyone, my name is Aidan Tierney, and today I'm going to talk about iOS accessibility, specifically using VoiceOver. So I work, before I say that, anything more, these slides are available on SlideShare. The URL is on the screen. It's slideshare.net/Aidan Tierney. And I'm also on Twitter, and my handle is @Aidan, AIDAN, A11Y. And my email address will be at the end of the presentation. So I work for IBM Interactive Experience, going into customers who have accessibility projects. And lately, I've been doing a lot of work with customers who are interested in making sure that their iOS applications are accessible, specifically to VoiceOver. So for those of you who may or may not be new, so when we're talking about iOS, we're talking about these devices that are shown here, iPad, iPhone, and also iPod Touch, so which can be quite a handy test device to carry around with you. It's not, someone was just asking me, these things we're talking about won't directly translate to the MacBook, but it's very, very, very similar. So recently IBM announced with Apple an interesting partnership. We're doing a lot of work in the enterprise space with apps. There's one goal for this session. It's quite simply this, that you feel after you leave that you can do testing with iOS VoiceOver. So I'm assuming that you may have no experience whatsoever. I'm hoping you have some experience with iOS so that you're not brand new to that experience. Or if you are, that's fine, but you'll have to be a little patient because we'll be paced, that I'm not going to explain everything that may come up. This will be a hands-on session. And so what we're going to do in a moment is pull out our iOS devices, iPads and iPhones, and start practicing things. There's one rule. It's you look like quite a well-organized, quiet bunch, but we'll see. And that is, if I say two-finger tap, it means you be quiet. Okay? So this is the only way that we're going to kind of get things done, because once you've got your heads down in your devices, I might need to explain something, and it'll get a little bit crazy. Okay? So what I'd like to do to start is to get a sense of who in the room has an iOS device with them, an iPad, an iPhone, or an iPhone Touch. If you could put your hand up and say, I. Okay. And then if you do not have an iOS device with you in your pocket or in your bag today, put your hand up and say, I. Yeah. Good, wiseacre. So what I would like you to do, invite you to do, is sit near someone who doesn't have an iOS device. So buddy up with someone and watch what they're doing, because it's going to be very much an experience where you're looking down at your device rather than looking up at me. Okay, so if you need a moment, shuffle over, sit next to someone. That's a good point. If you can connect, there'll be a little exercise you can use online, but there'll be an option if you can't manage to connect for some reason, so it'll be fine. Okay? So just a reminder, if I say two-finger tap, it means you be quiet. Okay? So what we're going to cover is how to start VoiceOver, how to set up your VoiceOver in a way that's going to make it a lot easier for your testing, how to do the very basic gestures, which are really the most important ones, and then to look at some of the more advanced and interesting features. One of them is the rotor, and some other features that we'll look at. And then I'll talk about procedures, and if there's time towards the end, you can ask questions about some of the procedures. That'll be kind of a light thing. Then we're going to talk a bit about the wireless keyboard and where that might fit into your testing. And I can show you that and show you how that works. I want to step back for a second before we dive into the devices and think about where this VoiceOver testing fits in. Just to say that often when I get pulled into projects or work with a team, there's often an assumption among people that if it works in VoiceOver, it's accessible, and something along those lines, comes up almost in every project. So just to keep in mind, this isn't the be-all and end-all of your testing. and it would fit into, at least in IBM, we break it out with these phrases. Oh, there's a number missing there. So it's AVT1, AVT2, AVT3. What I mean by AVT1 is some kind of syntax check, automated check. So if you were in Carl Grove's session earlier, that's the kind of thing where you push a button as you maybe save a file, and it does some kind of automated check. So those things ideally happen early on, while the code is very fluid. Okay, AVT2, there's a number missing there, is manual testing. So that can be all sorts of things. It can be checking the color contrast with some tool. It could be just reading the app and saying, like, are these instructions clear enough, and things like that. And then AVT3, it was going to be your VoiceOver, but just to keep in mind that it's not the only assistive technology, even on your device there in your hand. So there's a lot of interesting accessibility features. Your project may or may not need to look at those, but just to keep your mind open that those are there. And there's quite an interesting blog article just came out a few days ago about some of those new updates to those additional features in iOS by Luis Perez. So link is there, and you can check that out. So just want to start here just to make sure we've got the room kind of well working here. Remember the game Simon Says? Okay, so if I say Simon Says, you do that thing. If I don't say it, you don't do it, right? So if I say Simon Says, raise your hand and say I. Raise your hand and say I. Simon didn't say that, right? Okay, so there we go. Because this is a little bit childish, foolish, but it may come in useful as we go through. Okay, so go to your home screen. Now, Simon didn't say go to your home screen. So what I'd like you to do is just watch. It's only about 3 or 4 slides. We'll go through in about 30 seconds. But I really want you to just watch it as we talk it through, and then you'll do it. You're going to go to your settings. Now, if you have a kind of more defaults, thing, you just opened up a new device. The settings will be there on the home screen. You might have to go find where those are otherwise. And then we're going to go into the settings, into something on the left called under General. And we're going to look for accessibility, which is there on the right. And I'm showing on the screen what that looks like with a red dashed line around it. Then you're going to touch that, and you're not going to do too much here except scroll down to the bottom. And you're going to touch Accessibility Shortcut. And then if it's not already checked, you're going to touch VoiceOver to enable that. And this is going to do something quite magical, which is called triple click home. You can configure, as you see on the slide, there's other choices we could make. And as you press the home button 3 times in quick succession, VoiceOver will turn on, which is very helpful when you're testing. But the thing that's so good is that if you press it again 3 times, it turns off. And that usually, as you're testing, is really the major thing you want to do. To be, you're as a tester or developer who's doing a little bit of unit testing, you're not using this device as it was maybe designed to be used. You're using it in very short spurts, and it's going to be helpful to turn it on, turn it off quickly. Okay, and then we won't do it just yet, but then you can also touch the screen to turn it on. But I don't want you to do that because you may or may not know how to turn it off with touch. So we'll come to that after. So, are we good? So Simon Says, now go to your home screen. And I'm just going to go back to these. And this is where you pull out your device, and I'll step you through. It's a modest-sized group, so if you're stuck, maybe your friend next to you can help you. And if you're having a problem, maybe call it out. But I can't guarantee we're going to be able to figure it out. So you touch Settings. And then you look for General. Now, depending on what you were doing in settings earlier, you might need to hunt around a little to find on the left that General. And over on the other side, there's a setting called Accessibility. Touch that. And you need to scroll down to the bottom of that next screen. So the reason it's at the bottom is this is something you're not often going to be changing. And you'll see Accessibility Shortcut. And once you touch that, if it's not already checked, touch that, and you get a check mark next to VoiceOver. So take a moment to do that. And then, before you do anything else, just touch Accessibility. It's at the top there. It's like that breadcrumb. and then scroll back up to the top. So your screen will look a bit like I'm showing here now, general accessibility. It's going to be in a good place for now, when you're ready, touch the home key 3 times in quick succession. Something's going on. So if you didn't hear VoiceOver on, there's a few possibilities. Maybe it's a volume setting. More likely, your whole screen changed and it went to some other screen. If that happened, it means you didn't press those 3 quite in quick enough succession. And it was thinking that you were trying to change an app or go to the home screen. So could you, if you did not hear VoiceOver on, raise your hand or say aye. Good, so it looks like everyone has got that far. Great. Okay, so then we'll start to really get moving here. Okay. So 2-finger tap is a gesture, which we'll talk about with the other gestures, which actually temporarily pauses the speaking. So that's a very helpful gesture. So rather than turning it off with 3 click home, just the 2-finger tap pauses it, and then touch it again with those 2 fingers, it starts up again. It's a single tap. Okay, so if you do something else, and you don't have to try this just yet, but if you did something else, you're going to get a different result. So the magic of, okay, so we've got a picture here of Stevie Wonder. So I think Stevie Wonder, in a sort of tangential way, is one of the reasons I stayed in accessibility. When I was a developer in about 2007, they sent me at work to the CSUN conference, which IBM had a booth at, and Stevie Wonder came to the booth and started talking to us and stuff. And I thought, like, compared to all the Flash conferences I'd been to or other coding conferences, like, when do you get to meet Stevie Wonder? So I thought this is a pretty good area to be in. But I also felt that all the people I met there, and particularly all the people I know in the community here, they are just this is a very open community. So these gestures we're going to start with this very interesting thing that you'll probably only use once or twice in your life, this VoiceOver practice area. So if you can navigate to where I asked you to pause before, which was where you were in general accessibility, you'll see that VoiceOver there. And then either triple click home, or if you're brave, touch and slide to turn VoiceOver on. You will see, suddenly this thing will appear, VoiceOver practice. Okay. Does anyone not see that? Okay, so what I suggest if you could sit closer to someone who is seeing it, troubleshoot it that way, make them a new friend, and then if you're really stuck, then we'll take it from there. Okay. So what this area does is it listens to your taps, but it doesn't do anything with them other than speak them back to you. So it's a great way to know, like, what does this tap do? But the other thing is good is I'm going to tell you to do a few gestures, and it'll give you feedback as to whether you actually did it right. Because the problem is if you're testing some page, which we'll go to in a minute, you're not going to be sure, like, is the page broken, or am I just like, did I do something wrong or whatever? So this is a very helpful area to work in. Okay? So the first thing we're going to look at is what Apple calls Explore. Okay? And it's just when if anyone's been doing a lot of work with like desktop screen readers, this is just amazing, right? Because it means you can almost never have a major accessibility problem for a screen reader anymore. And what Explore is wherever you touch, it reads. So just try that on your device. So here I've got my iPad here. Go back to my home screen. If I have it on, which I won't to distract from because it'll be speaking, I just move my finger around, dragging it around, and I'll hear what's underneath it. So just give that a try on your VoiceOver practice area. You're dragging around. Okay, it is. So what you're really doing is relearning or learning a new vocabulary of how to interact with your device here. Because some of these are different than you would use probably before this. Okay? And then still in that same area, try what is called either swiping or flicking. It'll speak back to you flicking. You just sweep with one finger lightly across in one direction from left to right, and then maybe try from right to left. Give that a shot. So. Good. So just want to do a quick check here. Is anyone not hearing anything? Is anyone kind of just lost? No hands went up. Oh, yes. What's going on there? Scroll down a section. Okay, so we want to go back to just that practice area. There shouldn't be any scrolling down in the section. So what I would recommend is this. If you're a little bit stuck, click to turn VoiceOver off, and then do what you normally know how to do to get back to that settings. But you're not going to see the practice until you turn it back on. Okay, so that's good. You got it going there now? Good. That's a good point. I don't know. iOS 7 definitely does, and iOS 8 does. But you do need to turn it on before it shows up. It doesn't appear until you turn it on. Okay. Now, that is moving through your content, and we'll be practicing it on a real page soon. To activate something, so for example, clicking on a button, clicking on a link, touching on those objects, you do one finger, double tap, just a light double tap, and then listen to the feedback if it's telling you that you did it right, as it were. Sounding good. Okay, so very helpful, simple gesture here is two fingers, but what we're not going to be tapping, we just touch the screen and slide up from bottom up, from lower down on the screen up. And what it will do is start to read from the top of the app or the page. So this one's maybe a little trickier, and you might hear, that you've done something else. It may say something about scrubbing or who knows. Then you have to keep trying to just do a nice light movement up with two fingers. Okay? And similarly, but not quite the same, down. So what down does, which you can try it on your practice area there. It's more relevant when you're in an app. Is it takes from wherever you're currently at, it continues to read. So up always goes to the very first item, which is going to be pretty much at the top left, as it were, and just goes down. Swiping two fingers down carries on from wherever you're at. Okay. Question, yes? Aha. We'll get to that in a moment, actually. So the question was, why did my music start playing on the media player, right? And that's by design, but it's related to a gesture that it thought you made, But we'll look at that gesture in a second. Okay, so let's try this on a page. If you have Wi-Fi access, or accessed, we'll go to the Accessibility Camp homepage. So the URL is there. It's accessibilitycampto.org. And what I would suggest, if you don't have the access, just go into your settings where you were before, and this will, you'll be able to do all the same things we're going to do. Okay, so I'll give you a second to do that. And as you're doing this, I would suggest you first turn VoiceOver off. It'll be easier to get to this page. Okay, so I'll just take a moment myself and do this. So I'm not going to be mirroring my iPad at the moment. I had some difficulty getting that running, but you're just going to be focusing on your machine. So we're going to quite simply go through those same gestures, but now you're going to, it's like you're running in the wild now, right? So what I suggest is that you just allow yourself to cheat a little to begin with. Okay, so some of the things we're doing might not be very orthodox, as like tech testing, like turning it off and on all the time, or looking at the screen and pointing at things and touching them. But go for it now, right? So what I suggest is you just point at some object on the screen and then start to drag your finger around and listen to the other objects that are underneath, right? And let's just focus on what we see on that screen rather than what we might see if we scrolled or did anything else. We're just going through exploring what we currently have available there. So if you think about it, this is really quite different than your desktop experience. There's very few items that you're not going to be able to discover that they're there. Just give that a try. Okay. And then, I get bored of that pretty quick probably, what you're going to do is try this flicking. So the more common thing is going from left to right. You're going forward, as it were, right? So experiment with that. You're going to find it may not be doing quite what you expect. So what you expect to happen if you were testing this is that you're hearing each item in the page in some meaningful sequence, probably from top left to bottom right, give or take. So give that a try. And then likewise, you could try going the other direction and it'll go backwards. It's like Shift Tab in the desktop world. And then when you're bored of that, actually let's just wait on this one, we'll come back to this. Try 2-finger up. So wherever you're at, the voice will then change to the top. It may go into the Chrome of the browser if you're looking at the camp home page, and then it'll just continue through the page. Then what I'd suggest is you touch any element, and then take your hand away, and do 2 fingers down. And what you're expecting to hear is all the objects that are after that. Reading out. So. Good. And then, now this is going to take you into another page or into some other experience. Choose some object on the page that is actionable. So you're hearing a lot of the paragraph text or whatever headings. There may or may not be like links, but you find something that is a link or a button, and then you, with 1 finger, select, or first of all, you swipe to select it, and then the thing is, you don't need to tap on top of that actual thing. You just tap anywhere on the device, on the screen, twice lightly. And that should activate and take you to wherever that link or button would take you. Then we'll cheat here a little. If you go to another page, you could touch the home button in Safari, select it, and then anywhere on the screen, double tap and go back. And there's other ways to do that, more elegant, but we won't do that yet. We want to keep things simple. Okay. So there you've got some of the basic things that we'll be able to put to use. Okay. So are there any concerns about where we're at here so far? I'll move on to the rotor. Okay, so good. It looks from here that everyone's getting it to work on their device. So the rotor is very cool. It is a mode that VoiceOver has that lets you flip through multiple kinds of items, and the thing is you can configure, and we will configure, what those items are. I'm showing here on the slide, it's configured right now to headings. So I'll show you how to bring this view up, and then assuming it's up, which it is here, we're going to start flicking up and down. Instead of what we did before, it's up and down with 1 finger, and it's going to go through those items. So here in the case of headings, it's going to read if there are any headings. Flicking up will be going up the page in headings, flicking down, down. Okay. So let me just show you how to bring this up. If you want, you can use that practice area, but you don't need to. Turn VoiceOver on, and then you place 2 fingers quite close together, and you turn them either way, to the left or the right, a bit like you're turning a combination lock, like I've got pictured here in the slide. Okay, so it's just a light turn, swivel your fingers. So it's a little unusual, probably not a gesture on a lot of other apps when they're not running VoiceOver. give that a try. If you're having difficulty, maybe ask the person next to you. It's probably easiest to just watch someone doing it. Who's got it? Okay, well, so what I suggest is you turn VoiceOver off and then navigate back to the page and turn it on, and then it shouldn't turn on. So the reason it's coming on is you're pressing 2 fingers twice, not once. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like you guys have got it. I'm just going to show you how you can get a little more value out of this. Turn VoiceOver off, and then go back to your settings. Okay, so I'm in General, and then I'm in, I'll go back one there. So General, Accessibility. So this was the page, the view where we had VoiceOver at the top. Below that, that line with the tortoise and the hare, there's a few green buttons, and then below that still, there's something that says Speech, Braille, and Rotor. So touch Rotor. If I'm not sure, these screenshots are from iOS 8, which you've may or may not have been wise enough to upgrade to, but it's probably, there's minor differences, but it may not be quite what you see here. So once you bring up that rotor, this lets you configure what, this view lets you configure what will be in the rotor. And in the slide I'm sharing here, I've changed a few things. So one of the things that's quite helpful is the speed rate. So again, once you select one of these items, flicking up or down changes the value in some way. So in the speed rate, going up slows it down, and down speeds it up. Headings, as I was talking about before, cycles through headings. You can cycle through links. You can cycle through form controls, which would be very useful, if you're filling in forms. There's landmarks. There's a whole variety of that. So yeah, question here. Oh, what's a hint? So that's a good question. So right now when you're listening, because you've probably just opened up VoiceOver, it's telling you what to do with some of these things. So it's like link, double click to open, or something like that. So in the beginning, it's a really helpful hint, that. But it would be, for a power user, unnecessary. So they can speed up the process of that. But those hints are great when we're learning to test, because it's giving you coaching about what you should be doing in order to proceed in the app. So those hints are there. Okay. So you can go back to the Accessibility Camp homepage, or if you don't have the access, go back to just go to some app, or I would suggest one of the Apple apps rather than any other, and then turn the rotor. Turn your fingers to get the rotor on, and then try flicking up and down. So in terms of testing, this can be useful, especially I find for headings, finding headings, appropriate headings on the page. If your team uses landmarks, it's useful for that. Okay, so I'm going to move forward to a few other gestures, a little more, a little rarer maybe, and more for power users in some cases. This is an interesting one. It's another way to do your double tap with one finger, it's called a split tap. So what you do, and you can try this now as we go along, is you drag your finger onto something like a link or a button. So you're going in that explore way. And then with another finger, you just let that touch the screen. So one finger remains in contact, and the other finger touches the screen. It's called a split tap. And it does the same as double tap. So unlike the double tap, which you would be able to do, more, well, we'll just leave it at that. And so it's going to be, what works best for you. So it takes a bit of coordinating. Took me a few attempts to get that. And then, this is related to what we had this question at the front. So this is the magic tap. So let's see if we get this going here. So here I've got the OCAD login screen, and I'm exploring. Okay. And then I'm going to do two-finger double tap. And it's turning on my music player here. So, okay. And then to turn it off, it goes off like that. Magic, right? Another thing that it'll do is if you have an incoming call when you're, doing your thing as you're doing now, if maybe someone will call you as we're talking, the double tap would answer the phone at that moment, and similarly hang up the phone with another double tap. What I think it was pretty cool, but I don't think that's why it's called the magic tap. What is interesting about this gesture is this can be coded by the team that makes the app, right? So your app can take this gesture and customize it. So I'm not sure. I tried it. It didn't seem to get going, but you could maybe double tap and send a tweet, or double tap and it opens up a message, and that's something that the app developers configure. There's just a chunk of code that they do to configure that. So it's pretty handy, for some feature that is like the top feature in your app. You can do that. That's the magic tap. There's a good article about that on a website, AppleViz, which is a very helpful website about all of these topics. So it shows you, if you follow that link, the actual code how to do that in your app. Okay, so now this is for like hardcore testers or actual users who want to save their battery. Like I worked with a colleague at a customer site who said, like, my iPhone's great, like the battery lasts 21 days, and it's because he's blind and he doesn't use the screen at all, right? He just turns off the screen. Because that's what eats up all the battery, I guess. So you can simulate that full-on experience by turning on your VoiceOver.
VoiceOver off.
Well, it was on. So once it's on,
Wi-Fi hotspot authentication. Log in.
Then it's 3 fingers, 3 times in quick succession.
Screen curtain on.
And it'll say screen curtain on. Right? So VoiceOver's still running. Just the screen's gone off, and now this is like hardcore, right? So now it's like, okay, how does this really work? And now the Apple built-in stuff works really well. So I'm on the home screen here, and it's just going to cycle through.
Google Maps, apps, portrait, calendar, set camera,
right?
clock,
and I can still explore.
Page 1, dog,
I know my
Safari, Gmail, Safari.
Yeah, my Gmail's down there and all that, right? So this is the screen curtain. To turn it back on when you're like, oh, I'm over this.
Landscape.
3 taps. 3 fingers, 3 taps again. Okay, so it's pretty helpful. Impress your developer friends. And then I'll show you this thing that's quite helpful. Is 4-finger double tap. This is, I think, the most complex these are going to get. 4 fingers, double tap.
Starting help. To stop help. Perform of landscape.
Okay.
Home button to the right.
Whoops.
4-finger double tap. Start VoiceOver help. Stopping help. Starting 4-finger single tap near bottom of screen.
Oh.
Move to the last element.
So not the right one.
4-finger single tap near bottom of screen. Move to the last element. 4-finger double tap. Start VoiceOver help. Stopping help.
Okay, so 4-finger double tap brings up help. So help is a lot like that mode we were in at the beginning, where you're in that practice area. So at this point, all of the things that you're touching won't do anything, but it'll give you the feedback about what that gesture does. Okay, so it's like, you're not gonna lose your context about where you are. It's just help. Then to switch it off, you do the same gesture, 4-finger double tap, and you carry on. And now you know a little more about what the gestures are. Okay. So what I'd like you to try now is to open up either the address bar in Safari, or some other place where you can do text, preferably, again, an Apple app, or, it doesn't really matter, but they're not all going to be as accessible as an Apple app. And then start to enter text. So here, I was opened up the Twitter app and I was trying to enter text. So this is a little bit, it takes a bit of learning curve. There's lots of different ways the keyboard can be used. One caveat here is if you have iOS 8 and you've got another keyboard, because they've now introduced that like Android had since forever, where you could have your own keyboard like app, those may not be accessible. So for your testing, definitely just for now use the native iOS keyboard. Now what you're going to do in this basic mode is you're going to put your finger on the letter that you want to type like A for Aiden. It'll select it, but that's not going to put it into your text. You have to then double tap anywhere on your screen to initiate that. Okay, so you either swipe or explore for the letter. It'll be circled if you can see it with a black line. You double tap and the letter goes in. So it's arduous, laborious. So give that a try and you'll, quite quickly, I think, get a sense of why making a form accessible is also partly about reducing the amount of data that you're asking for in text, right? By giving options rather than asking for text. Okay, so just want to touch on a few pointers before we continue. I've still got a little more to go. In the beginning, first of all, it's okay to cheat, in my opinion. Don't imagine, oh, well, I'm not really doing it like a blind user might do it. It's like, well, you're not, because it's the second day you've ever used the tool. So go easy on yourself. However, don't be doing that 6 months later, right? So what I'm saying here is that it's okay to do some of these things, but remember that you are cheating at some point. If you're looking at what's there on the screen and trying to find it and hit it, and yeah, it reads, but So the other thing is you don't have to go to the other extreme of the screen curtain necessarily. And in fact, a blind tester is really going to have a very difficult ability, is not going to be able to fully test some of the features, because one of the blatant things that happens when we're testing is we see things that are not reading, right? So we do need to have that comparison to make sure that everything is reading that should read. Went to a really interesting session last year at a conference called Accessibility Testing with the Lights Turned Out, which was 5 blind accessibility testers talking about how they overcome this gap of really, it's an obstacle for them to be able to fully test certain things because they need to see it. And they have all sorts of workable techniques, but we don't need to necessarily turn the screen curtain on, that's all I'm saying. Okay. And then to keep things simple, just keep focusing your testing on those simple gestures of 2 fingers up and to the side. Okay. So please don't do this now because it's a massive download. It's about 1 gigabyte. But you can, with iOS 8, get a much better voice. I can maybe give you an example of it here. Which once you got it up and running.
Settings. 1 new item. Landscape. Heading. Dot. Gmail.
Oh yeah, it tells you if
Gmail.
you're moved from landscape to
Loading.
portrait.
A Tierney. Add. Menu. Up. Portrait. Menu. Form controls. Landmarks. Buttons. Zoom. Language. Speech rate. Language.
English UK.
So here I'm cycling through a few languages I've set. That's the computer voice of English UK. It's nothing special. But this Alex is
English. US.
coming.
Default language. As soon as possible and also
English UK.
English. US. Default language.
Oh, maybe just give me a moment. I think I turned it off. To me, the voice sounds like Anderson Cooper. I don't know if anyone else thinks that. This is the voice from the Mac. So if you have a desktop, it's the VoiceOver Mac voice. So the setting is under VoiceOver, speech, and for some reason it's disappeared off my machine, so I'm not going to take the gigabyte download on that one either. So definitely check that out. That'll make your testing a little bit easier. So I've got up here a few ideas about what procedures you would do. So this is some of the procedures we would run on a client app or web mobile type site. the biggest hitters we're going to get is from swiping from side to side, and we hear if things are spoken out, and that's going to touch on the non-text content, the info and relationship, because it'll tell you, is it a heading, etc. A lot of the biggest issues you're going to find are with things that change on the screen suddenly, such as modals or pop-ups, or refreshing live content, or content that just suddenly seems to change or appear out of nowhere. And does that read out? And as you're swiping through, the focus order. So, I prefer to take a point of view where, like, you've done a lot of the heavy lifting in the testing earlier. So VoiceOver, you're exploring to see, like, does it work, does it not work? It's not like checkpoint WCAG. This is a WCAG 1.1.1 thing. It's more like a bit of more of a user test, I would say. So let's, with that in mind, give a shot at an app that's quite accessible. The camera app, so all of you should have that. Unless maybe you've gone away from the native camera app. So if you want to open that up without VoiceOver, it'll just be easier. And once it's open, and turn your VoiceOver on. And we'll do a few of these procedures. So the gestures you know already. It's really not as not that much to learn in terms of the gestures once you've got those under your belt. Two finger flick up. You should hear the items at the top and move down. The camera is pretty cool because if you point your camera at an object, it'll tell you some information about that object, possibly. To the point of it'll tell you if it's a face or if it's a large face or a small face. So give that a try. And then what I'm showing here is simply just some of these other gestures that we were using. So the gestures you know already. So your task here is basically to try take a picture with this app. Success? Okay. So there, if you want to look on the slides, there's this list of procedures, and I'll do my best to try and write these up in a little more detail, try and post them on a blog post coming up. And I just want to talk briefly about a wireless keyboard. So you're probably all familiar at home or in the Apple store with those those beautiful aluminum keyboards that go with them. Those are wireless keyboards, and they work perfectly well. They're Apple, so they match. But what's quite popular is to have a more portable version. So this is one example, one brand, but there's different ones. And this particular one doubles up as a case. And then I slide this in here, and then I've got this almost like a laptop-y type thing here. And if you played around a little with entering data in touch typing, you'll realize what helpful a thing it would have for someone with limited vision or a blind user to be able to have this keyboard with them wherever they go. Right? So. The thing is, how important is it to test with it? If you're new, if you're got this new app and you're just now doing accessibility testing, I would avoid it completely. It's just way too much to start with. But if you're in a second iteration and you've done some accessibility testing with VoiceOver with gesture, I would definitely add it. It also depends what your app does. If it's a lot of typing involved in your app, then your users are much more likely to need it. So maybe like a banking app, for example. Beware, it's not as simple as it may seem. So all of the things we do with our fingers on the keyboard are not what we would do with our keyboard at home. They're different keystrokes. So there's a couple links there in this slide to both Apple and another version that explains the keystrokes. So you're touching two keys, which are called the VoiceOver keys, the control option, and then some other key. They're like a modifier. But it's also got something called quick nav mode, which is that link at the bottom. There's a really good article by Victor Tsarin there. And that is more like your regular keyboard experience. It's good for a web page. So you do a couple keystrokes on the arrows, and then you can just press the H key here, all heading, 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 link, 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 by pressing the L key, etc. If you're familiar with NVDA, it's going to be a similar experience like that. So in the interest of time and also the ability to show this, give it its thing, I won't be doing a demo here. If you're quite curious, I can show you after the talk. I'd like to thank you very much for your patience and your attention. The best resource, I would say, oddly enough, is the iPhone and iPad manual. Like, who knew they were there even, right? But they've got like about 20 pages of accessibility stuff. The manual's huge. It's like 120 pages, but I've printed off here, and it's got all of the keystrokes that we've, the touch things and the keystrokes in there. So that it's not really available directly online. Like, you get the PDF off the Apple website at that link. And then there's a few other links there to helpful sites. So thank you very much.
Hey. Wake up! All right, who here had an awesome day?
So I've lost my backpack. I'm serious. I gave it to Ruth for her present. Thank you. Never mind. Matt got it. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was
Matt's kleptomania.
the deep conference that Yuta mentioned. We, as in, I think finally Patrick and myself, we're going to hold a session at Deep. The Deep conference, it's another accessibility conference. And it is not invitations only anymore, I guess. If you are interested in joining, come talk to us, send us an email, tweet, whatever it is. And we'll make sure that you get a ticket and to attend. It's on October 16 and 17, so it's a 2-day event. We are actually for one of the afternoon sessions, so we're going to have the afternoon session, and in our honor, the camp, I guess, they're going to serve refreshments or a social event of sorts. I know everything about it, right? It's amazing. So if you're interested, let us know. That's it. It is in Toronto. It's right here at OCAD. Maybe that was important to mention. It's right here at OCAD. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. This is not just a camp that we help organize. It's a camp that, without your participation, your excitement, your passion, it wouldn't be the success that it is today. Thank you very, very much. We tried some experiments today. We tried doing the breakouts, which I saw a grand total of 0 topics got suggestions. So I guess we had a...
This means that our initial topics were good.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, that's part of it. I mean, you try new things, you experiment, and you learn from them. So next year we'll probably try another experiment and do something else. Everybody here, who learned something today? Awesome. So it is your job to spread the knowledge that you've acquired today. You are accessibility ambassadors. Thank you very much. You're great. We love doing this, and I could go on, but I won't. Accessibility Camp is not just Toronto. There's upcoming camps. There's next month, there's one in Quebec City. November, Montreal is having one. December, Ottawa is having one. Also, the organizer, Jennison, he's trying to rival our size in the Bay. He's having his 2nd annual camp. It's the Saturday before CSUN. Also of interest, Ottawa's Accessibility Camp on December 6th. Happens the same time as the Los Angeles Accessibility Camp. So this is a worldwide camp movement, grassroots, people such as yourselves all around the globe. Thank you very much. Now lastly, I'd like to thank the volunteers. Can I get the volunteers to please stand up and come to the front, please? I want to ask our speakers to please come up to the front. Can I have our speakers please come up to the front? Can I please have our sponsors come up to the front? Okay. Without these people standing in front right here, none of this will be possible. We all owe them a great debt of gratitude. Thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Billy and George as well. They've been great partners in organizing camp. They're great people to work with. Thank you, George. Thank you, Billy. So who wants to go? So I want to see, the first two hands I see go up. 1, 2. All right, you guys are going to get another Rosenfeld book, so please come see us. We'll get your contact information.
It's Sarah's book, by the way.
That's right. It's Sarah Horton. Sarah, would you mind please standing, please? Yeah. It's called A Web for Everyone. So I teased in the morning about an after party. It's true. It's going to happen. We have a reservation for 5 at Jack Astor's. It's walking distance from here. We have food provided. We have some drink tickets. Please come join us. Thank you very much. Accessibility Camp Toronto, our 4th annual, has been good, but number 5 is going to be even better. Thank you. And good night. Thank you.